Hello and welcome back to live coverage of the Apex Gaming $5,000 Open. I'm Tandy, joined by Ross. Say hi, Ross.
Hi, Ross.
We got 4 rounds in the books, about to bring you round number 5. Ross, why don't you give us a little bit of a rundown of what we're about to see?
Well, our feature match area is our 6 undefeated players. 5 of them are at 4-0. We got one player at 3-0-1 in there as well. So our 4-0 players are going to look to try to get that 5th win and hopefully double draw in. It might be a little tricky to do so. We've had some draws through the top table. That's why we have a 3-0-1. That sometimes complicates being able to intentionally draw later in the tournament. But that's definitely the mindset of the players right now when they're entering this, anti-penultimate round of the tournament. And, we got a good mix of decks. Only 2 Rakdos Evoke decks among these 6. One of them on our main feature match. That's Dawn Delosier. They're going to be playing against Patrick Legg. That's our Hardened Scales player. So this is the big test for Scales, I think. This is a deck that is playing a lot of cheap creatures. The disruption for Rakdos should be pretty effective. But things like Patchwork Automaton, Arcbound Ravager, and the just general resilient nature of the Hardened Scales deck hopefully can power through.
You made up anti-penultimate, right?
No, that's a word. There's also
Anti-penultimate?
yeah, ultimate's last.
I know
Penultimate,
penultimate's
second
right.
to last. Anti-penultimate, third to last. Pre-anti-penultimate is fourth to last.
I don't want to know why you know that. You know what? Let's just head on another page here. Let's get out of here. I don't need to hear this. All right, we got Dawn Delosier on your right. What's the name of the opponent, Ross? I know you know.
Patrick Legg.
Patrick Legg. We watched him play Hardened Scales a little while ago. Had a really sweet kill with a big walking ballista and a bunch of Arcbound Ravagers. These players are gonna be resolving their mulligans, and then we're gonna be off to the races. Both players on 6. All right, good to go. Turn 1. Looks like a Carplusion Forest gonna play a Hardened Scales. Maybe it's a Copperline Gorge. Who can tell?
I got thrown off looking at Dawn's hand because there were just no red cards in it. It looked like a Yawgmoth deck. I saw Verdant Catacombs and black cards, but we
Do
drew.
we have the deck list wrong?
No, we drew Rogovan for turn. This is Rakdos. I got Dawn's deck list right in front of me. Good old paper list. I love it.
Nice. It's been a while since I've seen a paper deck list. Here comes Blood Crypt off of that Verdant Catacombs, and now Dawn looking to either deploy a double, evoke creature or a Rogovan. It looks like we're gonna double evoke. Here's
I think that's a fatal push getting exiled.
maybe a Thoughtseize. Hard to tell. Here comes the
Yeah,
first
Thoughtseize,
discard.
right.
That's gonna take Zabaz. That's a 1 ring in Patrick Legg's hand. I wonder if Dawn is afraid of that one at all, or just gonna let that one rot in hand with Patrick only at 2 lands.
Yeah, so Zabaz, the 1 ring, a Beseju Who Endures, and an Ancient Stirrings for Patrick Legg.
All right, looks like we probably are gonna need a what's it called? Oracle reading of Zabaz. That might be a foreign one. Maybe just has a question about an interaction with Zabaz and something else. So Dawn going to be asking the judge for something, and then likely Grief going to be taking 2 cards out of Patrick Legg's hand if Dawn has one of those undying effects. You're not dead yet? What's it called?
Not dead after all.
Not dead after all. Look, if it's 4 words, right? It's a new card. It's 4 words, and it's not like a phrase that you say a bunch. Oh, you're not dead after all.
The important words are the not dead part. We've had that one down.
All right. Well, I'll
The
just
creature
remember
is not dead.
Not dead. Not undead. Not dead. It should have been undead after all.
Looking at Patrick Legg's list, I was surprised to see the 1 ring in the hand. He's got 2 copies in his main deck, so that is also a helpful card in such an attrition-oriented matchup.
Yeah, if you got the time and the resources to hit it, but 4 mana is pretty tough to get when you're playing a low land count deck and you're playing Urza's Saga, especially if you're not super inclined to go get Springleaf Drum early, which he has very little reason to do so.
Yeah.
All right,
No copies of Mox Opal in this version of Hardened Scales, but they do have 22 lands if you count the Urza
Mox
Sagas.
Opal. Mox Opal. That's the one you're coming with?
Yeah, they used to play it.
They used to play it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm sorry. I thought you just said not playing it.
I said no copies of. Yeah. Just letting them know what the deck list looks like. In case
All right.
I haven't seen a Hardened Scales deck in a while.
We got a wicked role played by Yzma from Disney's Lorcana, a game that I am super into. Here, Dawn going to crunch in with a 4-power Grief. This thing is a heavy clock. Patrick drew and played Carplusion Force for the turn with a Beseju in hand. Now Dawn going to go fetching. knows perfect information from Patrick, Boseiju plus ring, and
Yeah.
now she's going to look to deploy something to apply some more pressure.
Yeah, interesting that Dawn left the one ring in Patrick Legg's hand. That's a sign that she's going to play this game very aggressively, try to close it out quickly before Patrick can find a couple more mana and deploy that powerful artifact.
Well, I saw a nice little one peeking out from Don's hand just a moment ago. That's a Thoughtseize, and that can take the one ring, and then Dothy Voidwalker plus one ring is off to the races. Patrick draws for turn. It's a Welding Jar. Plays that in the Boseiju and passes back. Dawn with a bevy of options at her disposal might just attack for 7.
Yeah, I would imagine this will be an attack for 7 and at least a Thoughtseize on the ring.
Yeah, can just attack for now. I don't got a ring yet.
Don't know if there's anything else left behind for Dawn. I think there might just be lands other than the Thoughtseize in hand.
All right. Gonna fetch. Thumbing for a basic swamp. Looking for a blood crypt. Gonna go looking again. I know there's multiples in there. Here's the swamp. All right. Let's see what Dawn wants to do here. Taps 2.
Who does have another? Oh, yeah, had
Dash
the Ragavan
Frog.
that we'd seen earlier.
All right, so
Yes.
this is a 2-turn clock. This is a great attack. So we're going to hit you for 3, 7, 9. Down to 7 is Patrick Legg. We're going to get a card off the top and a treasure. It's just a 4, so it's dead. And now we can Thoughtseize the one ring. Going to put down Dawn down to 13, but Patrick has no cards left in hand. Is just going to back it in. Walking Ballista, not enough to prevent next turn from being lethal either.
Yeah, only had the 3 mana, so Ballista would have been for 1, and no single creature can block either the Grief or the Dothy Voidwalker.
Yeah.
And the 2 of those combined are lethal damage next turn because Patrick Legg was at 7, and we had the wicked roll on the Grief. So yeah, no outs left there, and really just perfect execution of the Rakdos Evoke game plan. You know, we talk about it being a heavy disruptive deck, and you have to plan for the long game against them, but they also have that capability to come out with really fast starts with a turn 1 Evoke creature, and then an Undying effect. And if you follow that up with any amount of pressure or the additional Thoughtseize, there's really not much that Patrick Legg could have done to get into that game.
All right. Well, these players are going to their sideboards. They have 15 cards to look at. Ross, you're looking at those 15 cards. Why don't you give us your expert analysis on what you think these players are going to be doing here after sideboard?
Well, I'm looking at Don's sideboard, and it looks great. To the point where there's almost too many cards to bring in.
That's a common thing that happens in decks that have like a lot of really strong interaction.
So there's 3 Engineered Explosives,
Bang.
1 Nile Spellbomb, 1 Fatal Push, 1 Lightning Bolt, 1 Terminate, 3 Wear Tear on the splash. There's a Godless Shrine in the main. 1 Blood Moon to supplement the 2 in the main. That one is excellent against Inkmoth Nexus and Urza Saga.
Yeah.
1 Chalice of the Void could be useful, and 3 Leyline of the Void. Leyline stops modular. So your Zabazes and your Arcburn Ravagers get a lot worse. Almost every single one of these cards is relevant, other than the Nile Spellbomb.
Yeah. Now, there's a good chance, I think, that Dawn actually boards out the Blood Moons. I think that they are quite good against specifically the things you noted. But half the function of Blood Moon is to eliminate your opponent's ability to physically play spells. And since almost all the cards in the Hardened Scales deck are colorless, it doesn't actually do that part of it. And I would much rather have something like Alpine Moon in this situation, since it's much cheaper and directly targeting something like the Urza Saga.
Yeah, so it'll really be a question of how Dawn wants to approach the matchup. You know, you always like to be able to bring in a lot of cards. 14 is probably too many, so she has real decisions to make.
Yeah,
You know,
but
what
Ragavan can come out, I think, on the draw. Blood
Yeah.
Moon can maybe come out.
Do you
It's
cut
like-
down on your Evoke package because you think I'm on the draw, I'd rather just be more reactive?
No,
or do
thank
you
you.
just want the most powerful elements of your deck?
Powerful elements of your deck. I'm cutting Thoughtseizes, I think. I think Thoughtseize gets dead really quickly, thanks to the opposing deck just being able to empty their hand quickly. But,
yeah, I could see that. I
you know.
could see Fable being trimmed as a kind of slow card in a matchup where speed matters.
Yep, I'm into that.
Plenty of options here for Dawn. It'll be interesting to see what she does. On Patrick Legg's side, there's 2 copies of Dismember, 2 Force of Vigor, 2 Orvar the All Forum, 2 Soulless Jailer, 2 Tamio Safekeeping, 1 Chalice of the Void, 1 Gemstone Caverns, 1 Grafdigger's Cage, 1 Haywire Mite, and 1 Pithing Needle.
Mhm.
We will probably want the Safekeepings. That's pretty good at protecting your key threats.
Did you
We'll
say
probably-
Veil of Summer?
There is no Veil of Summers. We got Safekeeping. I also like a couple Dismembers. And maybe you want to bring in some amount of Disenchants as a preemptive answer to Blood Moon. Even if Dawn is boarding, might be boarding them out.
All right. Well, the Hardened Scales player is going to be taking a mulligan down to 6. Seems like Dawn is keeping her hand. 7 card hand in the Rakdos Evoke deck often means a powerful start. I know Mason Clark was saying that we should go extremely aggressive with our mulligans, looking for the turn 1 double grief, going down to as low as 4 cards on the regular, looking for it. How do you feel about that?
I like aggressively mulliganing. Get good hands. I'm trying to get a peek at what Dawn's sideboard looks like to see what she left there. I see a Blood Moon on the top of that
A
pile.
lot of Disney's Lorcana cards and Pokemon cards over there. Uses
Yeah.
tokens of various kinds.
Looks like Thoughtseize stayed in, at least in some numbers, because there's one in the opener. I also see a Grief.
Okay, maybe it didn't go hard on like Chalice the Void and such. Just keeping it
I
simple with some more removal.
mean, game one was so easy. Why would you want to change much?
Right, right. All right, so Patrick on 6 going to be putting one back. Looks like he's putting back the One Ring. And you got to imagine, if you're putting back the One Ring against Rakdos Evoke, maybe it shouldn't be in your deck.
Could just have a landlight hand.
I mean, isn't every
And
hand
I
a
believe-
landlight hand?
Looks like he decided ultimately to keep the One Ring there.
Okay.
I see an Urza Saga, turn on Hardened Scale, so got some good things going on for Patrick Legg this game.
All right, Don here has a couple options. Turn 1, going to go for a Grief. Might have double. Oh, you don't pull your hand out until they choose the pitch card, huh? All right. Pitches the Thoughtseize. Grief going to come down, strip something from the hand, and then not dead after all. It's going to take another thing, and you might just see another repeat from last game where the One Ring gets stuck in hand and rots away while Grief beats you down.
Yeah. Patrick Legg's hand, we got Urza Saga, Ancient Stirrings, Patchwork Automaton, and the One Ring. So if Dawn plays this like she did last game, could just take Ancient Stirrings and Automaton, leave Patrick with 2 lands and a 4-drop.
All right.
And that does have another Thoughtseize back, so will likely leave the 4-drop knowing she can take it later.
Right. And I believe it has Dothi Voidwalker in hand too, so might just do the exact same sequence as last game. No, going to take the One Ring out of hand. Maybe doesn't have the Dothi Voidwalker, just wants to make sure that the long game is secure.
I mean, I guess she just really doesn't care about Patchwork Automaton.
I really don't care about 4-drops when I'm double griefing somebody. I'm sorry. Especially when one of those is an Urza Saga, which is going to die before it can cast the ring. All right. But Patchwork Automaton, not that scary. At least at the moment.
Yeah, you're thought seizing any spell they've drawn, so there's really, whatever comes off the top needs to be artifacts in order to trigger it.
Black Cleave Cliffs is the draw. Here's a 4-point grief attack. The Not Dead After All does give it the Wicked Roll token, so even if Patrick's able to get it off the table, we'll take 1 extra damage from the Wicked Roll dying. And the +1/+1 is... Whew, what are they doing over there in Seattle? Renton.
They're designing cards.
They sure are. Fast and furious. Saga ticks up to 2.
Yeah, that is a turn-based action, so Dawn required to remind her opponent of it.
Yeah, it's impossible. Well, it's not impossible, but it is not legal to miss a chapter of a saga.
Oof. And getting a little punished for the way she played this game. Patchwork Automaton now getting up to a 3-3. Can we potentially race back?
Maybe. I think Ballista might need to just go straight at the Dothi Voidwalker here. Maybe not, but this is a tough one. No attack from the Patchwork Automaton, even though I guess you want to try to double block the Grief?
Yeah. And Dawn can prevent that from happening with Terminate on the Ballista.
Yeah, but then the Ballista would just chew up the Voidwalker. So I think you're fine just trading 1 for 1 and keeping your Voidwalker alive so that it can potentially be devastating later.
If Patrick goes to the double block here, you can put the Automaton first. That lets you get 1 damage on the Ballista. Then if you terminate it post-combat, Patrick can't actually remove both counters to kill the Dothi Voidwalker because the Ballista will die due to state-based action as soon as you remove 1.
All right, well, Dawn's got a tricky spot here. Let's see if she can navigate it to victory. I think best course of action is what Ross just said, where you stack Walking Ballista as second, and then Grief is going to kill the Patchwork, and then put 1 on the Ballista, and then terminate post-combat will mean the Ballista can't kill the Voidwalker. So
It does still leave Patrick with the Urza Saga that can make a construct, get to tutor for something, but
probably is a Zabaz. And now you got to imagine taking that One Ring just feels foolish, right? You have a Thoughtseize in hand that you had at the time. It's kind of just rotting. Oh, Okay, actually, so this is a maybe a nice play from Patrick. So the Ballista's gonna get exiled, and the Dothy Voidwalker's gonna go to the graveyard. This is still before damage.
Yeah, and this is still a trade. Yeah,
Yeah.
so Patrick removing the ballista,
Phew.
before combat stops any counterplay from Dawn. Yeah, probably needed to use that terminate pre-combat because now Dawn doesn't really have. She has no aggression. Just has a Takenuma, a Thoughtseize, and a terminate back.
Yeah, Terminate can take out the construct, and then we're left with Patrick trying to find some more pressure here in some way. Look what we're gonna go get. Can go get the Ozolith, Zabaz, maybe something like Springleaf Drum, Welding Jar, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
It's Zabaz. It's
I like
always
Zabaz.
Zabaz. It's always Zabaz.
We've got the Hardened Scales. We don't have anything to make the Ozolith good. If we draw a Ballista, we want some chance to make it big. Let's get the Zabaz.
All right, Patrick here. Gonna put 2 counters on the Zabaz. Construct has Summoning Sickness. Let's see what his card drawn for the turn is. If it's a land, he can play it. If it's a 0, he can play it. Otherwise, it's gonna be stuck. It's another Urza Saga. That's the best draw in the deck.
Big punish continues to strand the Thoughtseize in Dawn's hand and is going to be able to generate a couple more big threats. Oof.
Another land drawn for Dawn, and now she can channel Takenuma during the instep and get back the Grief or the Dothy Voidwalker, but will that be enough? Zabaz plus multiple construct tokens gonna be churning in here. Gonna cast the Patrick Automaton. I don't like that play from Patrick. This is an attrition war. You need to be activating that Urza Saga to make constructs. You cannot cast a 1/1 instead.
If Patrick had some more artifacts back in hand, could pump up this Patrick Automaton, it might be a little different, but it's going to need to draw the artifacts in order to trigger it. I like making a construct too.
Dawn here gonna go fetching the Godless Shrine tapped. That means that Wear Tear is definitely in the deck. Wear Tear is great in this matchup if drawn. I would have liked to take 2 damage. I mean, go ahead and channel that Takenuma. It's now drawing another land. You're still just kind of sitting there doing nothing.
Yeah, sort of losing a turn that way.
All right, Saga ticks up to 3. We're gonna make a construct, and then we're gonna go a searching. One weird thing about Patrick Automaton is that it's a cast trigger and not an enters the battlefield trigger, so the constructs don't buff it. It's just a 1/1. Chilling out right now. We'll see what Patrick wants to go get.
Here I could see getting the Ozolith because you have the Zabaz. Okay, going for a Shadow Spear. That's fine too.
Yeah, it's great in racing scenarios versus the unblockable creatures like the Dothy Voidwalkers.
Could potentially maneuver it, move it around to help maneuver his battlefield against a Fury.
Right.
Obviously, the construct is quite big. Now we've got 4 artifacts. We could make that a 5/5 so it doesn't die. We could put it on the Zabaz to make that harder to kill. A lot of options.
Inkmoth Nexus is the draw for Patrick. Going to go ahead and play it. Now, we're going to crunch in for 3 damage. That construct has Summoning Sickness. And Dawn down to 14.
And our attack next turn is for quite a bit more.
Yeah, I agree.
Looks
We're
like
going to
at
need
least 8.
Need Wear Tear, need Engineering Explosives quickly. Here's Takenuma. We're going to channel. Top 3 cards going to the graveyard. There's a Fury. Are we coming back now?
Do we want to fetch the Verdant on the end step? Yep.
Yeah.
Dawn catches herself.
All right, we're going to go fetch probably Blood Crypt, maybe a Swamp if we do still have Blood Moon in the deck. I believe there's 2 red sources in play already.
There's a Blood Crypt. Alright, so we got 4 damage to spread around. Probably just killing the construct. We can't target the automaton.
Oh, you can certainly target it.
Yeah.
In fact, if you target it at all, the whole ability gets countered.
Yeah. So you're effectively just choosing between killing Zabaz and killing the construct. Kill the construct.
Yeah. If you kill Zabaz, the counters go somewhere else. It's very scary.
There's an Orcish Bowmasters off the top.
And Dawn gonna pass the turn. Maybe gonna try to block the Patrick Automaton and then use the Fury next turn to clean other things up.
The Inkmoth meant that we could protect the construct.
Ah, I see. Killing Zabaz seems weak.
Yeah, so we couldn't kill the construct. Fury not so good. So yeah, now we'll just kill the Patchwork Automaton.
Yep, and we pay 2 for the ward. And we get the Orc Army, which can chump block the Construct. Now, Patrick could sack the Zabaz and put a bunch of counters on the Patchwork Automaton. I think that's what he's going to go for.
Yeah. That'll make it a 4/4. It'll get 2 for modular, +1 for the hardened scales. Then it'll get 2 from its own trigger, +1 from the hardened scales. So it should be a 7/7 when all is said and done. And we still have enough mana to move the Shadow Spear over to it, making an 8/8 trampler.
All right. Well, here's the Orc Army, as well as the Bowmaster. And now we're going to go equipping Shadow Spear. What's going on?
Looks like we missed the automaton trigger from the welding jar.
Ah, you're right. You're right. Good call. All right. So, Patrick Legg, this is the second Patchwork Automaton trigger he's missed on camera today. And we're going to see if it comes back to bite him. Here, we're attacking for a big chunk, though. Don going to take it. That's 4, 8, 9 damage. Down to 5. We're going to gain 5. Up to 20 again. It's Patrick Legg.
And I don't know what Don is drawn to get out of this.
I don't know. Damnation? Welding jar. Nope, Damnation says can't be regenerated. Extinction event. Uneven. Here's a Fury. 1, 2, 3, 4 artifacts in play. Tapping Moth. This is going to blow up the construct. And now Fury can trade with the Patchwork Automaton if no artifact is drawn. Or it trades for the welding jar, I suppose.
Okay, welding jar going to protect the construct instead. So now we have a 3/3 construct, potentially 4/4 if you activate the Ink Moth. And we have a 5/5 automaton. That's pretty good.
Boz. 2 counters. Big attack coming. So Boz can also blow itself up mid-combat and move 3 counters onto either creature.
So this should just be lethal.
It should be.
We got a 10 power trampling creature once we move the Zabaz counters over.
Well, let's see if Patrick wants to do it. If I'm Don, I'm blocking with everything. See what happens. Maybe he misses it. 3, 6, 7. So 5, 6, 7. So this is 7 power versus 7 toughness. Now Patrick has an option. Do I sack the Zabaz? If I do, 3 counters being moved over. This is 8, 9, 10 damage coming across. And that's it. Don Delusion packs up. That's game number 2 to Patrick Legg. We're going to be moving on to a decider. While these players figure out their sideboarding for game number 3, I want to take just a moment to shout out some of our sponsors. Big thank you to Apex Gaming, first of all, for hosting this enormous event. We've been loving coming up to Caldwell, Ohio to provide some commentary for y'all. I'm Tandy, and we got Ross Merriman in the booth with me. We appreciate y'all being here. Big shout out to Young Dingo and Jim Davis for giving us big raids earlier in the day. And thank you so much to everyone at home who is hanging out and watching some awesome modern magic with Boswell Drain Legal. Big thank you to Wings Etc. Grill and Pub for providing us with necessary nourishment after a long day, as well as a couple beverages. Ultimate Guard, thank you so much for the swag bags that we've been giving away to all of our top 8s at our invitational qualifiers. And thank you once again to G Fuel Energy Formula for keeping us energized on these long, long days.
We're about halfway through, round 5 out of 10.
Yeah. Yep. Top 8 usually goes pretty fast, too. Faster than the Swiss rounds.
Yeah, we'll see about that.
Untimed.
No Tron v Control matchups.
Look, I'll just go bird dog them. I'll just stand there and watch them, and they'll play faster.
Bird dog, that's a good song.
It's also just it's actually the nickname of my dad's best friend. I always thought that when I was growing up, he's just like, "Oh, bird dog's coming over." I always thought that was cool.
Hey, gotta wonder if Dawn is rethinking her play on turn 1 from game 2. I think if she had played it like she did in game 1 and left the ring, that Thoughtseize that ended up sort of rotting in her hand would have been live later, would have taken the automaton out, so your grief would have lived. Might have been able to just take this match in a swift 2-0. Now you got to win a 3rd game, but the good news is you're on the play.
I mean, I think like you said, that definitely that sequencing left Dawn in a precarious position, but mostly Patrick Legg won from getting double griefed on 1, which is an accomplishment in and of itself, if you ask me.
Yeah, Urza Saga doing a very, very good job at recouping a lot of card advantage and getting him back into that game. Both players on a mulligan to 6 here. Gotta think that favors the deck with a lot of discard.
Oh, for sure. You know, every time my opponent goes to 6 or 5 cards and I have a turn 1 discard effect, I just know that their hopes are dashed.
And we'll see if both players can stick on 6 or if somebody will take the unfortunate mulligan to 5. You know, if you're going to mulligan to 5 in game 3, doing it when you're 4-0, probably the best time to do it.
Yeah.
These players still have, the loser of this match will still very much be live for our top 8. The winner almost locked. Not quite. Almost.
All right. Don going to put 1 on the bottom. Patrick going to go to 5. You never want to see that as a Hardened Scales deck because your deck is not high functioning on low resources. You need a lot of game objects to sacrifice to Arcbound Ravager so you can generate large bodies.
Yeah, we're gonna definitely need some Urza Saga action going on for Patrick to get back into it on, I guess only down a card because Dawn is on 6. So also not the worst time to mulligan to 5 when your opponent is at 6. I do see a Ragavan in Dawn's hand, and I see a Fury.
Yeah, and that's the nuts. All right, Patrick, do you have a 1-drop? You're on the draw. Do you have a Gemstone Caverns? You're on 5 cards. If you have a Gemstone Caverns, is it even worth it to put a luck counter on it? Because then it's almost like you are on the play on a mulligan to 4, something like that. I guess you draw a card on your draw step. I don't know.
Yeah, still not great.
Not great.
I guess it's like being on the play on a mulligan to 5.
Yeah, unlucky. All right, does have the Gemstone Caverns. We'll see if he wants to go for it. Thinking about what to put back. Has to put 2 back for the mulligan and then a 3rd for the Gemstone if he wants to do that.
I could see Gemstone Caverns if you're on a Patrick Automaton draw, but then you become so vulnerable to Thoughtseize or Grief.
Right. Okie doke. Puts 2 back. And now it's time to get lucky.
Okay.
Someone call Pharrell. Here's a Ragavan. Patrick Legg can deploy a 2-drop here on turn number 1 to protect himself from the Ragavan hit. Let's see if he's got it. Hand looks relatively weak, all things considered.
I think I see Automaton and the Ozolith. Not sure what the other card is.
Okay, well, if it was Automaton, it should have been cast. We're going to go Grafdigger's Cage and the Ozolith. Accidentally flashed his card. I didn't see it. I wonder if Don saw it. Don Delosier swinging in for 2.
Interesting that Legg decides to go for the 2 1-drops instead of playing the Automaton that could easily grow.
You're 100% it's Automaton?
That's what I thought it was, but maybe I'm, my eyes aren't what they used to be, Todd.
All right, Arcbound Ravager is the find. Don is lowish on resources too. May want to go ahead and just cast this as a 1/1 for 2 mana.
Well, especially if you think your Ragavan is going to get through a lot, you'll have some treasures around to sacrifice to it. If you just make it a 3/3, that's pretty good.
All right, so Don taking a peek at the Ozolith, making sure that the Ozolith triggers on. So if Don plays Arcbound Ravager, here's a question: does the Ozolith get counters if Don sacrifices the Arcbound Ravager? I don't know.
The Ozolith says creatures you control.
You control.
Leave the
Cool.
battlefield.
All right, well, here's Fable the Mirror Breaker. That's going to make a 2/2 Goblin, and we're going to get to churning. Patrick, taps 2 for Patrick Automaton. You were right. You were correct. Now Welding Jar, going to put a counter on it.
Oh, Welding Jar is a good draw there to go with the Automaton.
All right. Now if you're Don, you're like, okay, he's out.
Yeah.
Grip's gone. Ooh,
Right.
where tears the pickup. Holy moly. No enchantment to target this game yet. But...
Yeah, so it basically is 2 mana to trade for Welding Jar.
All right, well, we're going to take up Chapter 2. Maybe going to discard some extra lands. We'll see what Don wants to do. This is game number 3. Both these players playing for a pristine 5-0 record. The winner likely able to double draw into the top 8. And discard just a swamp. Draws 1.
I think if we had played the Automaton the turn 4, it would be a 4/4 right now.
Ross, don't you give me that logic.
It would
okay?
be so big.
No one wants to hear it, especially not Patrick Legg, okay? He made his decisions. He stuck with it. If I'm Don, I'm jamming with both and hoping Patrick goes block Welding Jar. That's fine with me. I don't know.
Yeah. And, if you make the trade, I would definitely trade Ragavan for the Automaton at this point.
Oh, absolutely. All right, Fetch Shock for Godless Shrine. That's going to enable full Wear Tear, but no enchantments as of yet on Patrick's side. We're going to swing with both and get a trader.
little strange to do the fetch shock before attacking. You just sort of show it to your opponent.
Well, Don may be wanting to go cast Tear and pay for the ward.
Okay.
And if that's the case, the Welding Jar will tap it, so we'll get some damage in and get the treasure back from the Ragavan and a card off the top. All right, and it will get tapped from Regenerate. Now, Regenerate is kind of a weird old school ability, but whenever something gets regenerated and then dies, it stops being dead and then taps itself. So it can't block. Land off the top, off the Ragavan, and we're back making a treasure. Patrick's what?
Okay. Really need an artifact here for Patrick so you can get this automaton up to a 3/3 and check these red creatures.
There's Rising Canopy. Has Inkmoth Nexus, which can block, which is nice. Wonder if that's what he's going to want to try to do. Or if he's going to crack Canopy. He goes for Canopy Crack. Draw. Anything to play?
Not a ton of ones in this deck.
Says go. Back Dawn's way. Let's see if she can find a removal spell. I saw Fury peeking out. It's kind of weak against the Automaton because it does have Ward. Chapter 3 of Fable the Mirror Breaker goes off. And we got Reflections of Kiki Jiki. When combined with Fury, quite strong. We're going to attack with both. See if Patrick wants to block. No more Welding Jar to protect. Going to take the 4.
Interesting. And that's going to get another treasure from the Ragavan, which will bring Dawn up to 7 mana.
Oh, that means Fury plus pay for the ward.
Yep.
That's so sick. All right.
And that's just about end this game, especially with the reflection on the battlefield, too.
Yeah. It's so dirty. All right. Dawn, going to go fetching. Likely going to get a swamp to prevent damage. And now, the 4 lands plus the 3 treasures is going to allow for Fury Hardcast plus pay for ward. Patrick Leg is on his last leg. Don't laugh at me, director. I'm out here making gold.
Hey.
He's over here laughing at me. I guess that's a good thing if he's laughing at me.
Yeah. You got mad when he laughed at my joke. You got mad when he laughed at your joke. Just let Taryn laugh.
That's fair. That's fair. Laugh at what he likes, huh?
I have no idea what Patrick Leg can draw here to even survive the turn.
Yeah. And there it is. Patrick Leg defeated Dawn Delosier 5-0 with Rakdos Evoke, taking that one down.